Hi everyone, I'm Adrian, that's Philip, Jay, we're from Audio Excellence Canada. Thank you for watching. As always, if you like our videos, please subscribe and turn on the notification and share the videos. In another video, we'll talk about why we do this, but please do so. We appreciate it very much. Today we're going to talk about the McIntosh MC275. We've had a lot of requests for this video, and I thought, yeah, it's probably high time that we do it. So let me go over some of the basics first. The current MC275 is the 6th generation. The original version was released in 1961, so almost 20 years ago. 60 years ago, 59 years. That's amazing. The current version has the widest bandwidth output transformer, and the factory says that gives the tightest bass and the most extended frequency response. It has both balance and RCA inputs. It's rated for 75 watts per channel into 4, 8, or 16 ohms. This part might blow your mind, as it blew mine. It's 105 dB in signal-to-noise ratio. So let me just put that in perspective. When CDs came out, the theoretical limit of signal-to-noise ratio was 96 dB. The McIntosh MC275 with all tube input and output has 105. So every 3 decibels of signal to noise essentially means that you are doubling the power capability. That's pretty amazing. That's like 9 dB of difference. It's bridgeable to 150 watts. It also has a unique turn-on sequence, which I'll have the guys turn on and show you later in a separate B track. So when you first turn it on, the small tubes in the front are amber, and it checks the amplifier's operational status. And if the amplifier is fine, it goes to green. If any of the output tubes are not working properly, the input tubes corresponding to that output tube will turn red. And it's 75 pounds.
Not red, amber.
No, if it's not working, it turns red. Yeah. All right. Since you talked, you might as well continue.
No, it's amber.
No, it's amber.
There's only 2 colors.
No, it goes red.
I've never seen it red.
Well, because you've never seen it blow.
Well, Peter, who has 2 of these,
yeah,
he had issues with it, and it turned amber, didn't it?
It's red. It's red. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. Anyway, since you're talking, why don't you continue? And just remember, $1 each time for those banned words.
Oh, you're adjusting. I'm too loud now?
No, he's too loud.
Oh, he's too loud.
No, you're okay now.
Well, Adrian is a bit of a loudmouth. No, I'm sorry. It was just a joke. I'm just trying to be funny. Okay. So just a little trivia for you guys out there. I once saw an advertisement for the McIntosh 275, or it might have been a review or something like that. So back in the day when it was first released, the price of it was approximately between $200 to $300 US dollars. And I believe it was in the comparison with a Bell Carillon, which is another tube amp, integrated tube amp from that time. But typically $200 to $300 back in that time was, if you were a well-to-do, well-paid person, that's what you would make in a month. So it was a month's salary. And its current price is pretty close to maybe what a person doing fairly well is making in a month.
So let me interject, by the way, which I forgot to mention. The 275 is 6,000 US dollars or 8,100 Canadian.
So there you go. So if you're, in the low 6 figures, that's a month's salary. And so it's amazing how, given all the years, it really hasn't risen in price, even though it has.
With inflation,
yes. So, let me first start by saying I never much liked this amp. I've listened to a lot of McIntosh products in my few years in audio, and I always preferred, the ones that were a bit more tubey. In other words, the ones with tube rectification. MC30 And of course, my particular favorite MC60s, MC75s, which is the monoblock version of this amplifier. Was very powerful, but at the same time, not my particular favorite. I mean, I believe Jay, you owned a pair of MC60s, and you've had MC30s as well. I'm pretty sure you made the same kind of choice. Now, given that, the version 6 of this amplifier is really quite amazing. I listened to it the other day in a more critical fashion. We got a pair of Wilson Duet 2s in, and I was pretty sure that the 275 version 6 would not drive them very well, and lo and behold, they really did. And I began to delve more deeply into the way this amplifier sounds. What I can say about it is that it's pure McIntosh, but in a kind of like non-traditional way. It's very pristine sounding. It doesn't really have any weaknesses. It is tubey in the characteristic that bass can be a little bit warmish and sort of inexact, which is what a tube amp will generally do with bass response. But everything else is just right in its place. It's very even. It flows beautifully. There's really not much weakness to it. The Wilsons are extremely revealing speakers, and the 275 really did not disappoint at all. I was really quite impressed. It has a kind of clarity that you don't expect from a tube amp of this kind of design. Push-pull tube amp with high power that's not a trial tube amp. So when I was playing music, I kept on playing more stuff, and I kept on playing stuff with actually fairly heavy bass response. And so I went through all my standard tracks. I did the Chris Stapleton, I did the Gregory Porter, I played my Yazoo track, I played Sade. All that stuff was just really warm and enveloping, but in a kind of with a pristine, beautiful glisten to it. And so, I have no qualms about highly, highly recommending this amplifier. It will give you years and years of that McIntosh enjoyment that we all love and, hold dear.
So it won you over.
It really won me over because I wasn't expecting it, and I've listened to it quite a bit, but not intently. And I will say one other thing. This amplifier is really amazing when you bridge it. One of our clients, his name's Peter, he has 2 of these, and he uses it with a pair of Yvettes. And he had a little bit of a problem with one of them, so we took it back in to have it serviced, and that was quickly fixed. But at the same time, I got a chance to listen to his Yvettes without the bridging, so only with one amplifier, which was probably why I didn't love it so much at that time, and it seemed a little bit too polite. But when bridged, it was like just another a presentation altogether. All the things that I thought weren't so good about it, it was all way better. So there's this authority when it's bridged, and there's this so much greater dynamics. I mean, just a little bit of power, really. I mean, you're only talking about 3 dB, but it makes a big difference. And it's one of the few amps I ever heard, transistor or tube, that when bridged was actually better than when unbridged.
Cool.
Jay?
I hate going second now.
You always went first.
What do I see now?
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, you were there for that thing with Peter, so you could maybe start with that.
Stop picking your nose.
I'm a little under
Jay's
the weather.
got coronavirus, so we're
Oh my
staying away
God.
from him.
So, all in all, like Philip mentioned, the bridged mode of the MC275 really did impress me. It was not so long after I started working here that I took a visit to Peter's house, and I was told he's a big client. And so I was like going into his place and saw his big house. I was like, wow. And then saw his system. And I love wood. And I'm going a little bit off track here, but he had this beautiful table made out of mahogany red.
Oh yeah,
and
that's right.
It was beautiful. And then
Guitars everywhere.
Guitars everywhere, and I was, and he had like limited editions. I was like blown away. And then past that, there's a fireplace, and then there's Yvette's, and he had the MC275s, and I think he was using the C2700, or was
He
it?
had a 2500, but then he
2500,
switched to a
okay.
2600. So
Yeah, and so like Willem mentioned, I took a few visits as well, and when he had just the one MC275, it was amazing. I was at the time I was like, wow, this sounds incredible. But then when we bridged it, or Willem bridged it because we went together, I was like, the hell is this?
it's like a totally different amplifier.
Yeah, and so the MC275 bridge is a whole different story, so I won't really touch on that topic, but it did blow my mind, and it is a significant upgrade from a single MC275 in my opinion. The MC275 alone reminds me, I'm kind of mixed in opinion here with what I feel about it, because on one hand, it does remind me of my MC30s and 60s. On the other hand, it reminds me of the more current McIntosh sound. So when I look at, for example, a solid-state McIntosh like the MC462 and the vintage McIntosh tube amplifiers like the MC30 and the 60, I find that the MC275 is slightly more towards the modern side, but still retains some of that characteristics of a tube sound that the MC30s and 60s had, especially a little bit in the mid-range. So it does have that tube characteristic. And to me, it is a lot more tighter and a lot more focused in the bass region than in the MC30 and the 60s. So when I first had the MC30s and 60s, and I had it with my JBL L300, and when I had it with that pairing, I found the bass to be a little bit too, as Philip would put it, woolly.
Yeah, it's a bit woolly.
Yeah.
Woolly.
With the MC275, I did not find that at all. Of course, I didn't have it with the JBL L300, but we had it with the duets, and we heard it with the Sabrina, we heard it with the practically many of the speakers in the store. And I found the bass to be always just, to me, about right. It was not sluggish, it was not slow, and but at the same time, I didn't find it to be extremely fast or extremely tight, but just about right, and whatever that means to you. And so in that way, I do prefer the MC275 in the bass region compared to the vintage McIntosh. But the vintage McIntosh, for sure, like Philip mentioned, is a lot more tubier and a lot more holographic, and has this sound stage and depth. But what the MC275 does better in this regard is that although it may not be like all over 3D like feeling.
It's not exaggerated.
It's not exaggerated, and at the same time, it does still have that tube characteristic, like I mentioned, but it still pinpoints imaging and instruments very much better than the vintage McIntosh pieces that I'm more used to.
Cool. Okay, I guess that's it. So for me, the 275 has always been one of my favorite amps. My first real personal experience was with vintage, I guess version 4. Immediately I fell in love. And this was back in, I guess, now in the 80s or so. So at the time, the typical tube amps available were things like the Conrad Johnsons, the Audio Research, MFA. MFA came later, and a lot of the tube amps on the market were slow, sluggish, colored, always in a nice way, in a sense, always very musical, but not particularly clear or transparent. But,
very euphonic.
Yeah, very much so. I've gone through my share of old vintage products, and the McIntosh seemed to be better, more transparent, and more more able to listen through and let you hear into the details of the music if you care to. And then the 50th anniversary came, and then now the version 6. And so it's always been one of my favorite amps. Entirely reliable, drives virtually every speaker that you would normally find these days, as opposed to like back in the 80s, you had things like the Apogees where they were impossible to drive. So to me, one of the great values out there. It's not cheap. Let me just point out. But value and cheap are two very different things. If it performs at a very high level, then it's worth the money. And to me, it's worth the money and more. In fact, I have a hard time. One of the things the guys will tell you, we for a number of years now, in fact, for quite a few years now, have been trying to find a tube line that we could add to the store, that I could add to the store and not feel like there's a significant compromise or that I'd be unhappy and unwilling to recommend to people. And a large part of it is because the 275 sets the bar so high for me. So I really, really like it. And as the company has progressed in making the product, they've also improved the operations. So, for example, I think Generation 4 did not have the green LEDs, so you would not know if there was any problems with the amplifier until you played, and then there would be a problem. So I like the fact that this product has been on the market so long that they've ironed out a lot of the typical issues with tube amps out there. So, and then finally, the resale value is fantastic. You rarely see these on the market, and when they come up, they're almost immediately grabbed. So if you can't afford it, highly recommend the amplifier to you. I don't think you'd regret owning one of these. Any last words, guys? No?
Well, we always have last words.
Go right ahead.
Well, we'll finish this video and we'll start another one then. Thanks very much for watching. Again, if you like this video, please subscribe and turn on the notification and share the video with your friends. If you have any comments, you can email us directly or leave the comments below. Thanks again. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.